Got it. Yep. So, yep. Name is John. 55. Live in Michigan. And my background, way back in the late 80s, joined a family business. My dad had an small little advertising agency. So I joined it. Didn't care for advertising, but I loved video production. So I got into that doing corporate videos.
Okay.
And because it was a small little tiny company, I wrote the scripts. Well, first of all, I pitched it to clients, mostly like industrial clients. This was training and corporate videos. But I'd pitch it, I would sell it, I would write the script, I'd go out and shoot it, edit it, the whole thing. Did that for a number of years. And then in the 90s, the internet came along, and so I started building websites, and that really kind of then became the primary thing. And did that building web applications for 28 and a half years. And then I retired in 2022.
Okay, so you're how would that be? You're pretty well versed there. There's quite a few things you've accomplished, and
I've had wore a lot of hats
yeah, there you go.
over the years, a lot of hats. But I've always had a love of writing. I mean, I've had that since I was a kid. In fact, I have sitting right on my desk here is a letter that I received from Tom Clancy back in August 29th, 1989.
Oh God, okay.
Yeah, no kidding. I was trying to write, of course, like everybody, I mean, read Storm Rising, read, Hunt for Red October, and started writing terribly a techno thriller of my own back then, and but I wanted to reach out. I wanted to get some advice, and so I wrote back then a letter to Clancy, and he wrote back. In fact, he wrote back and he said, "Tried to call you, but you were out." And then, then gave me, yeah, right. In my head exploded.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he tried.
Like, oh, hi,
Yeah, I totally wouldn't have believed it. But yeah, he said for a guy first time out of the box, you pretty much have to be able to present a finished book or enough that a publisher can make an informed decision. So, in all caps, get to work and write the book. Second, you need an agent. Mine is blah, and then he gave me the contact information for his agent in New York. He said, "That's all the advice you need. Regards, Tom Clancy." And it's hand signed, and that has remained an inspirational letter, forever on my desk. Pretty cool.
And by 89, he was pretty big, so that's a pretty humbling.
Yeah. He was. When did Hunt? It was. I think it was right around Hunt for Red October. I think it was right before the movie, but it was certainly after the book, and I think after Red Storm Rising. So it was right in that era where he was just beginning to blow up. So yeah, he was a big inspiration. So I mean, I always loved writing, and then dabbled in that for a while, and then in 2011, I wrote a book, self-published book. It was a sci-fi book. And it was also written kind of as though it were a history book taking place in the future, as a near future story.
Okay, that kind of goes back to that, like, or what it's a Clancy quote, but it's like if it's fiction, it has to make sense. Or the weird thing about fiction, it has to make sense. So the weird thing about
Exactly.
science fiction is it like you gotta mimic something that has a baseline.
You do, and there's a lot of carryover actually from working on that project, that book, to Flat Circle History now, and so I put it out. I self-published it, and I went, well, if it sells 100 books, that means at least I have some skill of some kind.
Sure.
So let's see what happens. And I put it out, and it did a little bit, and then somebody, and I said this is back in 2011, early 2012. Somebody tweeted about it, and then suddenly, it became a big thing briefly in England, for space opera, like on Amazon. And so I sold like 5,000, and I was like, hey, all right, somebody
Yeah.
somebody thinks I can at least write a little bit. So I immediately, because it was going to be a series, I started work on the second book, spent a year, hated it, hated the second book, didn't like it at all, ditched it, tried to start working on a third. Meanwhile, people are like, hey, what's going on? When's the, and I eventually went, you know what? It's not working, and I'm not going to put out crap to just get it out. And so I
Yeah.
called a halt, and I pulled the book off of the off of Amazon and Barnes and Noble back then, and called a halt to it, and decided, all right, I'll pick this up when I get time, do something new,
It,
and then life gets in the way, and 10 years later.
yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
it's one of those things that like you want to do it when you're passionate about it because what
absolutely.
you're putting out is like gold. When you
Right.
don't want to do it is when it's like all
If
right,
as soon as it's work,
yes, I've
yeah,
said that many
that,
times. As soon as this becomes work, this is not fun, and I'm not about it.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so in 2022, I retired and decided, all right, I'm gonna knock this book out. And so I started it, and I got about a third of the way through it. But meanwhile, Ukraine is happening,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
And I'm a child of the Cold War, and I didn't think that we would have a situation where we could have a major land war with Russia and Europe again. And then plus just the emotional. I mean, watching what was happening in Bucha, and I remember watching the photos from the New York Times of the mother and the kids that were killed in the shelling early on
Yeah.
when they were north of Kyiv, and just being gutted by that. And so here I am, I'm working on this sci-fi book, and I'm like, but this is happening right now,
Right. Right.
you know. And so eventually over the last winter, I started kind of going, do I want to make that shift? Do I want to write a book? Do I want to do something else? And I've now written 4 books, published one. I have 3 sitting here. It's a long slog, it's a multi-year process. And then to get a book out, even then, is
I
a
can
couple
only
year
imagine.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3-year process to get a book out. So I'm like, nope, I want to get something out that I can get feedback quickly, that I can do and not get bored with, not get task saturated. And so I decided, uh, let's try a video series. And I like writing short stories, and it's like, well, every episode is a short story. It's self-contained within an overall story, and so in April, I think I started on the script, and I thought I'll put out 2 or 3, throw them out there and see what happens, see if anybody likes them. And so I started in April, took forever to do those first 2, just learning, and put them out in June, and Bob's your uncle. So, but you push the button, right? And then you're like, okay, does anybody care? Is anybody going to care about this?
No, that first, we have similar stories in that where it was like the Ukraine war happened, and the ultimate time kill for me was just sitting on DCS World. So I would do that, I work graveyards, so like on my weekends or like your last day off, you kind of got to switch over anyways. So I kind of have to stay up all night, and that would, okay, I can sit on the sim all night and we're
Right.
good. And then the Ukraine war kicks off, and yeah, right. You're looking at it every, it's like you getting like hourly updates on what's happening. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
like,
Oh yeah.
oh God, it's terrible. And right, they encircle or just about encircle Kiev, and you're just like, man, that city is gonna fall. And there's kids that are younger than I am doing what I'm pretending to do in DCS World for real. And it
Right.
just kind of, yeah, it made me nauseous to the point that it was like, you know what? I don't think I want to play the sim for a while. So I just kind of backed off of anything that was that related.
Yep.
And then, well, you're like killing, like, okay, how, like to put you get a creative itch. You know, you still, you know, you're like, well, I got to do something. I can't, you know, okay, I'm not playing the sim I used to play. I'm not doing the shooters, not doing that. Like, yeah, but what if, you know, like you got to put it into a context. Like, okay, what if I put it into so I was, you know, have been in love with Red Storm Rising,
Mhm.
and that's how that came about. Is I'm just killing time. Like, yeah, but what if I could tell the story of the Dance of the Vampires? Like that was such like an inspirational chapter that it was there was so many so detailed, so many what ifs, so many, and that was why I used or that was why I would play the sim is to just like fact check what was written. So it's like, well, how many
Yeah,
you know how many backfires would it take to take out a task force? And then it you know okay I'm running these full size simulations and the computer's just screaming at me like oh god because at the time the sim didn't run that well and yeah I get you know I'm listening to the audiobook to get all the notes and then that was where that came from is that it was like I'm, this doesn't sound you know I mean like I could just animate the audio you know like basically you know
all the
animate
tools are there. All the tools are
all the
there
tools are
to do it.
there
Right,
and
right.
yeah no and I kind of like you were saying like I put it out there okay let's you know I put it out there for me and like the brother-in-law of mine who turned me on to Clancy. I was like, dude, you got to check this out. We can finally watch Red Storm Rising. You know, haha. And he
Right,
was like,
right.
dude, that was pretty good. Didn't you know? Video kind of sat there. Video kind of sat there, and then I don't know what happened, but yeah, one day it just blew up. Like I have 1,000 views. I have 3,000. I have 10,000. I have like what? What?
Weird, weird when that it's a little, it's surreal when that
Like
happens.
the algorithm took off, you know, and then because more people, you know, it kind of an exponential. Okay, well now it's everywhere. Like, oh god, whoops,
Well,
accidentally got popular.
I stumbled on yours when I was researching this last year. Okay, is there even an audience? I mean, before I started doing it, it's like, all right, first, is there an audience out there for this? Do they even, because I'm building it for me because it's something I want to see, kind of like what you're doing for you. You want to see it.
It's I
I'm building
wanted to
it for
watch
me.
the you know I wish it was a movie.
Right.
So I you know no one else is making it. Okay, I
Right.
guess I'll make it into a movie. You know.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so I stumbled on your video and it was like, holy cow. What you were doing was phenomenal. Um but also I was like, how is he doing that? Well, you didn't monetize it. That was the big so you weren't gonna get in trouble because I was like, how is
Nope.
he doing the narration? How is that happening that, but
And
you
I'm good with that. I'm keeping it. I
exactly.
don't want a penny from any of this. You know.
Exactly, exactly. So you did it well there and but it was so cool and it was clear from watching the videos of oh yeah there's an audience out there there's us old dudes from the 80s and 90s who grew up on this that I mean I you talk about the simulation stuff I mean what I used to my time sink years ago was Harpoon
Yep.
and then later Command Modern Operations and of what ifs, playing what ifs for hours and hours and hours.
Yep.
And so I get it. I get let's play Red Storm Rising, but mine was Harpoon mostly. So, but yeah, your video is what really kind of showed me that okay, there's people looking for this out there. So we'll try it, see what happens. And you, I mean, oh man, how many subscribers? I mean, you're it's phenomenal.
I think it's only like 38 or something like that now, or 39. Like I'm not quite at the 40,000, but it you know it's one of those like I'm me I'm that popular like there's you know and I watch other you know YouTubers that are like especially like DCS content creators that it's like
Yeah,
damn this guy's talented like wait how's he doing that you know how's he okay like shit he's good he knows what he's
right,
doing and then he'll have like
right.
17,000 followers or something and it's like shit you know.
Well, isn't that a lot how a lot of things start? It's you think, well, I can do that. But also when I was looking at what was out there, it was, oh, there's a lot of them that are doing it in Arma 3,
Yep.
and I was an Operation Flashpoint guy way back forever
Yes.
ago,
Yes. The
up to
resistance campaign
I think,
with
yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. And then, and then life and stuff gets in the way, but I dabbled in Arma 3 a little bit, and mostly like the editor than playing the game. But uh, the videos that I would see out there of a hypothetical conflict of something, they tended to be almost just music videos. I'd call them war porn. It was a lot of equipment and things blowing, Michael Bay things blowing up and whatnot, but very little story. It was a military action video, music video, and I thought, but yet they were getting, you know, 4 million views, and it's like, okay, but what if we actually made a really compelling story? you
Give
know,
it some context. Yeah.
right, right. And now my concern was when I was working on it was, will the audience be forgiving that this isn't 2023 level graphics, that this is an Unreal Engine graphics, because, Arma 3 and that, I mean, DCS is good.
Yeah.
Arma 3 is 10 years old. Um,
It's
so would they be
probably as far as
forgiving?
engine goes, and we aren't quite there with like Reforger. But well, I mean, what you're trying to do, you
Right.
can't really use. You'd have to mod the hell out of Reforger to kind of get it to where it's at.
Yeah, in a few years, maybe. Yeah, in
Yeah.
a few years. That's the beauty of Arma 3. It's like, oh, I need some Estonian ground forces, and
Yeah.
boom, I've got it.
You go in
And
the
there's a few times,
oh, they're okay. It's Estonian Ground Forces pack. Like, oh, okay, that tracks.
right, right,
It's
and
all
not
there.
always. I don't always get, and the the audience. I've now started putting in the videos in the text in YouTube, kind of my commentary. Which part of it is, hey guys, give me some grace. you know, if like I took some grief in I think it was episode 6 or 7 that the uniform on the UK sub commander wasn't a commander uniform, and it's like, dude, I'm sorry. The fact that he was Royal Navy at all uniform was sheer luck that I found that. The fact that the epitaphs is like, so I mean, if you looked at the Russian sub uniform, it ain't Russian sub.
Right.
So I kind of have to go with the best that's out there, and sometimes you really kind of got to improvise. And so I've kind of had to ask for a little bit of forgiveness from the viewers of, I'm doing the best I can with what's out there, and sometimes you got to kind of get creative to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. I if you recall the end of my last video where it was like two green army men talking in the water. You were
Yes,
talking
right.
about like, is this
hmm
gonna work? Just total comedic on my end, and I
Well, so I think my wife is my copy editor. She's a former journalist, print journalist, still a
okay,
journalist, but former print journalist. And so she copy edits my work, and so she's the one that will poke and go, "You're getting a little too serious. Get some levity, build some levity in
yeah,
there
yeah,
occasionally, and don't take yourself too seriously." She jokingly calls my stuff war cartoons, just to kind of keep me grounded,
yeah, yeah.
which I love. Uh, but yeah, I've had to improvise on some things. I've had to, well, the approach that I took also was, if we make it a documentary, then there's not voice acting, there's not cheesy, because that can get weird and awkward, and
Right.
you
You
know.
just have to
Oh,
narrate it, and the narration voice you have for that works so well.
yeah, I got lucky on, and I bow to a buddy of mine. So draft 1 of episode 1 is my voice. I did the voiceover. Nobody that will never see the light of day, but
Right.
I did it. Sent it to my buddy who, I mean, he's done music scores for TV shows and stuff, hey, take a look, see what you think. And he goes, yeah, it's great, but your voice. He goes, check out this thing called 11 Labs.
Yep.
and I did and went, holy cow, this is a game changer. And what really impressed me was, I think it was like in episode 2 where I tried out my first quote of getting a character to actually, have a kind of drill down. There's, things going on, but then it's a reaction from an individual, whoever, I think it was a soldier or something. And so I have a quote in there, and 11 Labs, when it read it, actually changed the tone slightly and the pacing when it got to that quote. It knew
it'll do
to
that.
do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to do a lot of massaging with it.
Do the opposite of that, where you're like,
It'll do weird things.
that's okay. We'll announce that, or pronounce that way. Sure, yeah, that's not.
What's been crazy is it's been weirdly consistent, like for the most part, with pronunciations of Estonian cities, right? And it's like you kind of hold your breath of, is it going to get Rezekny all right every time? And for the most part, it has. But then it'll do weird things with, like, I had one of the characters' names, General Radek. I had to phonetically spell that out to get it to read it correctly and consistently.
It won't consistently, right? Like one time it will read it right. I've run into that. One time it will read it right, and the next time, or down in the paragraph again, it'll miss. Like, you got it right.
You did the first time, right?
I spent a whole night trying to get it to pronounce something that it pronounced once good here.
Right.
That's correct. Okay, and here, no, what.
Right.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of another example, but yeah, I've had that. I think the biggest struggle that I have with it, of having to massage it in 11 Labs for the AI voice, is pauses for kind of dramatic effect. It wants to just plow through, and so there's my script, and then there's the voiceover script, which has tons of M dashes and things to say. You need to pause mid-sentence here to add some drama to the end of that sentence, because otherwise it's just plowing right on through. So there's a lot of takes to get that right. But the amusing thing is I will get from, and I still get them from viewers, that, oh, you and the narrator, the team, you guys are doing great. And, and I kind of have to, and at first I kind of just let it go, but it's like, no, dude, it's just me.
Yeah.
There's no team. It's just me. So I can appreciate, mine are, 5-minute videos. What you're doing is way longer and more complex.
I get a lot of I've gotten a lot of those where they're like, how'd you, Michael Picard? How did you get him to?
Right. No. And it took a long time. My biggest fear, not biggest fear, but my biggest fear with the AI narration is if they screw with the algorithm and they blow my character away, blow my voice actor away, because they did some upgrade.
Right.
I mean, that's like killing a beloved character at some point. So I'm really hoping they don't muck that up and mess with it. So we'll see.
You might be all right. I think it might even, when it comes to it, right? Because I've noticed they're doing updates to some of that, and you can still tweak it, and you can make the same character just sound different with some of the settings. You could probably get it back, even if they really.
Yeah, and I've got enough recordings now of the. I mean, you can get 20 seconds of him talking, and I can probably rebuild it. Yeah. So my buddy Noel, he's the one that pointed me to 11 Labs, and that was really transformative, because now I could. It took the pressure off of using my voice, but it also gave me a whole lot of freedom. Because I mean, I can make as you know, you can make a tweak on the fly so quickly.
Yep.
I need to tweak this paragraph. 5 minutes. I've got a new audio clip to make that change, because sometimes you don't till you get it in there, till you're actually editing. You think it works in the script, and then you get in there and you're like, no, it's not liking the pacing of that section. I need to tweak that sentence. And I'm an old timer that we used to do that in the booth. I mean, you hired a voice actor, and you spent the afternoon in the booth with them.
You ran through a script
You ran through a script, and if you made a change later on, oh my God, because now you got to bring that actor back in and try to match the audio, and it's never perfect.
Oh,
whereas here it's perfect every time. So to me, it's just like, oh my God, it gives you so much more freedom to tweak things to make them better.
Yep.
So.
Yep. No, I actually have you to thank for that, because I think after you had made your episode 2 and your
2 or 3 is when you and I connected.
Hold on a second. What program are you using, or how are you getting that? And I was hanging on to your coattails for that one.
Well, it's been a fun ride, I got to say.
So let's. You've kind of ran through some of these questions just organically here.
Yeah.
Okay, then we're just gonna skip a couple down.
Sure.
Inspired you to create content portraying such things.
You might have to clean up my color. The darker it's getting out, the more red I look like an apple. You might have to adjust my color.
I might have to adjust my color because I am very pasty because I work with nerds.
Well, normally I am very pasty, so now I look like I'm about to have a heart attack or something. So.
Let's go. So if you had to, yeah, okay. Well, this is like the 4th or 5th question down.
Yeah.
If I asked you to walk me through your creative process, without giving up any secrets, I guess. What does that look like? Like, what's your next episode coming up?
Yep, which I completed. So 8 at the time of this, we're filming this. 8 was released a couple weeks ago, and I just completed this first draft of script 9, and I'm working on script 10. So I'm hoping here. It got fuzzy. There you go.
Autofocus.
So my plan is to get 9, 10, and 11 kind of written in a gang those up rather than one at a time. But so my process is I've got seasons first planned out. So season 1 is about 14 episodes, and I've got that timeline planned out.
Okay.
I've got season 2 rough drafted, outlined of how season 2 goes, but only I'm purposefully keeping that open because things are going to change. I've already added episodes to season 1 based on things along the way, which is kind of cool. It takes a life of its own. But yep. So I have my overall timeline, and then when I'm creating an episode, the very first thing that I do, and I can send a example, but I have to ask the question, and I'll look at it here right at the top. So episode 8, what is the point of it, and how does it move the story? That's the first question. I have to be able to answer that honestly, and so it's not
keeps it grounded.
It's got to keep it grounded. Yep, and it's got to have a point. And then it also, how does it start? What's the conflict? What's the arc? I treat every one of these like it's a short story in and of itself.
Yep.
So it's got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's got to have something that hooks people right at the beginning. It's got to have a teaser at the end to tee up the next episode.
Yeah, right.
Yep. The attention span on the internet is short. You got to keep it moving. Also, it's like I said, I'm kind of doing it for me. It's got to be interesting to me. So I answer those questions first. Okay. From there, then I start to I've got an idea of what I want it to do. So an example is in episode 7, I started out with an airstrike, a Russian airstrike on a civilian convoy of vehicles fleeing
Yeah.
Lithuania.
Yep.
And that was really a nod to footage of, in February 2022 of seeing the line of cars leaving Kyiv for Poland.
Yes. Yes.
And so that was my
Right. Yep.
tip of the hat to that. And also, oh my God, what if that would have gotten bombed?
Yeah.
If NATO, for whatever reason, theoretically, was trying to get to Kyiv, if you bombed that, would make that roadway inaccessible and would slow things down. So I'm kind of kicking that around, but also I wanted to start it out with that because I wanted to shake up the viewers a bit, that this isn't a clean technological bloodless war. This isn't war porn that you're watching. Bad things happen to good people, and I wanted to get that point across. And so that was the first thought of that episode. And then it was, okay, it's been, 48 hours in the story. Let's bring in some ground troops, but it's risky to do that, and they need some context. The viewers need some context of how that would happen and why, and the risks involved. It's not we can just go in there guns blazing, and so I was doing a lot of research, reading white papers out there and trade pubs and whatnot. Rand Report had a lot of good info about this, of what a scenario like that could look like, and that's all open source stuff out there. So it's a lot of research, and then so now I've kind of got pieces, and I've got research, and which also will kind of change the outline a little bit of the and so I'll develop the outline for that script. And then from there, the writing becomes easy. I mean, once I have a firm grip on the outline, the theme, the conflict arc in that, day and a half to write the script. It goes quick.
Okay. It's just a fill in the blanks thing at that point. It's
it kind of, yeah.
Say, and you know what's going to happen. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And I have my target. I mean, I try to keep the intro, around 250 words. I try to keep it all around, somewhere around 850-ish words. Okay. Because I know that's going to keep me right around, 6-8 minutes. And frankly, any longer than that, I mean, I know that the audience is, we want them longer. Well, maybe, but maybe you're saying that, but in reality, it's a lot less forgiving when it's a longer production. And it's also, it's exponentially harder the longer that production is. So to me, the around the 6 to 8 minutes is just enough that myself included will sit and watch it and want to see the next one, and I haven't stayed too long to the party.
Sure.
And that seems to be the right number for me. And also, I'm trying to put out one of these at least once a month, and it takes about 40 hours roughly to put one of those out, and longer is harder. And so I developed the script, talking about the process, developed the script, and then once it's edited and cleaned up and I'm good, then I put it into a shot sheet. In a kind of Excel type thing, where I then break it up into scenes. And I'd say on average, an episode runs somewhere around 50 to 60 scenes.
How detailed is that sheet then? Or do you just have a rough idea of what you're looking for, or are you, it's got to be this and it's got to be that?
So it's pretty broad, but like, for instance, I've got episode 8 here, and I'll say, let's see, U.S. Marine Corps First Lieutenant Louis Roscoe looked out into the blackness, his night vision catching sight of fellow landing craft, blah, 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 blah. And so that's scene 802. And the broad description is, looking out over LCU with ships in the distance via night vision.
Yep.
The platform is ARMA because this is going to be close up.
Yep.
And then what I found works really well for me, and I try to do it for every shot, doesn't always happen, but I go out and I hunt to find footage that I think is close to the idea of what I'm looking for.
Okay.
So that might be, in this case, a landing ship with troops on some exercise, or it's a ballistic missile launching, or it's a Apache flying overhead over a convoy, whatever. So I'll hunt around and find, okay, based on the narration for that section, what's a good shot, and then try to not perfectly emulate it, but get the idea across. Because if I found it's totally wide open, if I just have I need an Apache shot, you will dump tremendous amount of time trying different shots that don't work. Yep. And, it's the filming that takes the longest amount of time.
You like how this looks, so recreate this to this,
yep.
and call it good, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And it doesn't always work out, but I try to get it, close to what that shot is.
Sure.
And so I'll have that plan, and then from there, do the narration, and I do the music, and which is it's all YouTube, music, and so I don't get into copyright issues and that.
Yep.
And I lay down the track of the audio, the narration track, and I lay down the music track. And then I start figuring out pacing and how long the shots are going to be, and because the music drives a lot of the story, right?
Oh yeah.
And so, I try not to bolt on the music after the fact. I try to incorporate that earlier on in the editing. You're smiling. You have a story. You got it. You get it.
I get it. And yeah, my first drafts of the Dance of the Vampires had no music. I was editing it, and it was, I guess, okay, this is that, and this is that, and like, oh yeah, all right, let's, like, oh man, it's just a dude talking. And the second I put it to music, it was one of those like,
drama. It's drama.
Yes, you have drama. Now this is intense. Now this is woo,
Right. And so, yeah, at that point, then I start the filming, and the filming is, that's the time sink. Some of them will go quick, and I've started to build, and so I have a whole database I built now of all the shots, and I mean, there's like 500 shots that I've logged now, so I can leverage those files and tweak and go. I mean, if you really look, there's a shot of BMPs driving down the road with troops walking alongside it. There's a couple versions of that, one at night, one at day, one with smoke in the background, one from a different angle, that I've used to try to, if I just need a shot really quick.
Yep.
But it can take, like, I remember was it episode 1 or 2? I think it was episode 1. Yeah, episode 1, where I have a World War I shot, because it was telling, I forget what the line was in the script, but it references World War I. Well, ARMA has a World War I mod, right?
Yeah.
I only need 4 seconds for this shot. Yeah. It took me a day and a half to, through Steam, download it, install it. It just took forever to get this one frickin' scene for 4 seconds.
40 gigabyte or something.
Oh my God. It was maddening. It was maddening. And I've had others that, the intro, the convoy scene took me, the civilian attack scene in episode 7 took me days. And it was because in ARMA, the cluster bomb didn't look like a cluster bomb. Also, it killed my frames.
Yep.
so that it was freezing and doing things, and also it just didn't look right. So I had to eventually kind of do the close-ups in Arma and then do the overall in DCS
Yep.
and then blend the two. But also, what I spent the most time on was trying to get Arma for that Russian fighter jet to come down the road,
Yeah.
and it just wouldn't come down the road. I coded it to go a certain heading at a certain speed at a certain altitude, and it'd be 100 meters over this way this time. The next time it's 100 meters over. Suddenly it's coming, and it was just it was maddening, just absolutely maddening to try to get that thing to work right. And I spent gobs of hours on that. So a lot of my time in the filming is getting Arma and DCS to do what I want it to do.
Yep.
There's so many blooper. In fact, there's a funny one. Eventually, I might release it, but there was a hilarious. So this, it's a very serious scene of the fire, the civilians that have been killed in the flaming wreckage and all of this, and the father with his head down, and then all of a sudden this random dude walks through my scene in the background like totally nonchalant. And somehow he got out of a vehicle and just walked through the fire. And I'm like, I had this beautiful shot, and then he, okay, all right, do it over. So the filming usually it takes almost 2 weeks to do the filming. Then at that point, the editing goes quick. The editing takes me usually within about 3 days. I've got a rough cut, and then clean it up, tweak it, and go from there.
See, the editing, usually for me, the editing is they say like 20% of your project takes 80% of the time.
Yeah.
That's that's the 80% is just in those details of editing. Like, no, I got to get, you got to get this clip just right. He's going to be coming in. He's got to do this. He's got to do that. Like, but I'm basing all mine off pre-existing narration. I can't quite flip the script to suit the narrative,
No, you have the challenge. I have a challenge if something just isn't going to work, I can tweak it. Yeah, you don't have that option, so you have to get real creative on how to do that.
Yeah.
You don't. Yeah, that would be tough. That would be tough. Also, it's tough that the Clancy fans and especially the Red Storm Rising fans, they're particular, and there's always the danger of getting beat up on a detail.
The British helicopter. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the call sign, but yeah, no, I that was the closest we had in DCS was something that was European that does an ASW role, and that was people didn't appreciate that. Yeah,
I got beat up in episode, I think it was 7 or 6, maybe it was 6, of the UK. The Astute class, HMS Astute class sub, and I put the HMS, and it made it all the way through editing, and because I'm used to the USS blank, and I put the HMS blank. Well, you don't say the HMS, right?
Just HMS, sure.
But now it's out there, and I responded maybe to the first 8 posts that you don't say that, and I'm like, yep, I got it. I've been schooled. I won't do it again, promise. And I'm still, to this day, I'm still getting, love the video, except, so I put it in the description, in the text description now. It's like,
people don't read.
Yeah,
people
believe me, I won't do that. I won't make that mistake again. And the trouble is, I know there's going to be mistakes. And hopefully they'll be forgiving. Hopefully they'll be forgiving.
I know about mistakes. My God. I don't have an editor. I'm my own editor. I can't spell anything to save my life. I'm totally dependent on spell check. And the video editor I use doesn't have spell check. You know how many I've had a lot of things that have just flown by, and I don't know about it until a couple days after the release, and the comment says, "Hey, you spelled that wrong."
Right. Right. Yeah. The one thing I've really enjoyed I do this, try to do this with every video, is put in detail that people that would be really interested diving deep into this would learn. Like there's an episode, I don't know, 2 or 3, I forget, the battle in Rosecnia, outside of Rosecnia. You know, I mean, I'm Google mapping, street viewing where I think that battle will take place.
Yep.
And then I'm building that. There's one scene where there's where the German, the leopards are in a battle, and that field, you can Google map it, and there's when I was street viewing it, there's a TV radio tower off to the left, and I was like, does Arma have her? And yep, they do. So I dropped one in there, and it was like, and that's just for my own pleasure. But I've actually had somebody from Rosecnia, you know, contact me. Yeah. And I'll do things like, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. The town along the UK coast, is it Sunderland? I forget the name of it off the top of my head. Where the civilians are watching the air defense knock down the Russian missiles that are incoming on the boardwalk. I mean, I street viewed that and I built the boardwalk. Well, the shot required, but once I got done with editing, I kind of had to, you never really got to see it. You see the people standing there, but you don't, that pan another 5 degrees over and you would have seen this entire boardwalk that I built that never got in the shot. So I have fun doing, there's little things like that give me pleasure during the process.
The continuity, and that keeps, that's
the fun.
People appreciate that detail as well.
Yep. Also, it keeps me fresh and keeps me, it's fun to do that kind of stuff. But let's see what you also, let's see what other questions you had here. Looking at my, you asked me about some of the people I follow.
We could get down to that. You've kind of jumped around and hit a bunch of these.
I have,
just out of, just in a natural flow of things.
Yep. I mean, talking about original, I mean, like I said, Red Storm Rising, Clancy. I mentioned in a video, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but that book, Third World War.
Okay.
It's the Third World War, August 1985, by General Sir John Hackett. This thing is, it's shattered. That's the original that I bought when I was 14.
Okay.
That ultimately is the inspiration for all of this. It was written as though it is historical. So it's kind of, speculative nonfiction kind of.
Okay.
And it tells the story of a Third World, Warsaw Pact, NATO war in 1985. But it was written in, I think, 1979, 1980, somewhere right in there. Might have been a little earlier. And as a Cold War kid, I mean, my brain at 14 got maybe 60, 70% of it.
Sure.
But I was fascinated by it. I was fascinated, and the things that scare us fascinate us. So, terrified of nuclear war, but also fascinated by it, right?
There's something to that, yes.
Yeah. And so I read that book, going, I want to do something like this someday, something similar. And so ultimately, I mean, all of this kind of has led to this series, really goes back to that original book. Although the book is incredibly dry. I mean, it's more white paper than book.
Sure.
But the format of it, so if I had to say what was the inspiration, it would be that, but also a bit of Clancy and Red Storm Rising, a bit of, back then I was Lord of the Rings and Hobbit and all that, so world building of Tolkien. But I'd say more recently, there's an author, Rick Atkinson, and he does He's a Pulitzer Prize winning historical author. He wrote the Liberation trilogy about World War II. He's currently working on, I think he's on book 2 of the Revolution trilogy of the U.S. Revolutionary War. That guy is brilliant. I can't tell you how many times I've read the trilogy series as inspiration and ideas. He has this ability to take a view, to go from a strategic level view of what's happening. Okay, so, before Normandy and what have you. But then in the story, drill down to individual, the sensory, what the soldier smelled, felt, tasted, Yep. And so you are there in the mud and blood with that soldier, and then he pulls you back out. So you always have awareness of what's happening, but then you also have the human element, the emotional element to it. And he's brilliant at blending that seamlessly. And so before I even started this, I have footnotes, and those books are just his books are notebooked to death of this scene worked really. They're scenes, right? They're right. In the book, it's still a scene, and so
right, like a scene,
right.
Yeah.
So how did he handle the Normandy invasion? How did he handle and how did he make the transition from here to here? And I just studied the hell out of that because he does it so well, and I've tried to incorporate it into this series of being able to give the viewer the overview of what's happening and why, so they're understanding what's happening, where and why. But then without the human element, then it's back to the white paper. It's an education piece.
Sure.
But now if I can drill down to the individual, and I try to pick about 2 per episode, where I'm drilling down to an individual and tell their story and what they're feeling briefly, and then get you back out.
Yeah.
Because that's the emotional part. Otherwise, it's just dry. So I try to incorporate, but Atkinson does that brilliantly. So those are the authors. Those are the primary ones that
pulling inspiration from. Yep.
That I'm pulling inspiration from. Yeah.
Well, okay. We'll drive back to some of these questions, get us grounded again.
Let's see if I can get this lighting so I'm not quite so monster lit. Let's see.
Looking pretty good for where I'm at. So
is it all right? All right. I'll leave it alone then.
Picking up. All right. Okay. Well, you talked about. I'm just going to go down the list from where I started there.
Sure.
How much time do you have in like Arma 3, DCS, Cold Waters? I think those are the 3 sims you got.
Yeah, Arma 3. I go back to all the way to Operation Flashpoint. So a decade back to that. DCS. So my favorite aircraft on the planet is the A-10 Warthog, by far. Love that plane. It's just wicked. It's just a wicked, tough, strong, airplane. And so I originally got into DCS, but I waited a long time. I didn't get into DCS until probably 2016, 17. I don't know, something like that, because I knew if I got into it, I'm gonna spend a lot of time in it. And I just didn't have it. I didn't have the time to devote to it. So, but I'd say around 2015, 2016, Cold Waters, I did not. Well, Command Modern Operations, I'll throw that one in too. That one I played quite early when that first came out as a different name. Command Modern Naval Opera, whatever it was, CAM and whatever.
AO or something like that.
Yeah. When that first came out, I was on board because, like I said, I'm an old Harpoon. I still have a copy of Harpoon.
That was the
original.
It's also the poor man's Jane's.
Yeah, exactly.
And thing, but yeah, that was the your modern edition of Harpoon right there.
I remember
And then some.
when Hunt for Red October, because I'm trying to write back then, I'm trying to write a techno thriller, and so this is pre-internet. I'm down at the college library pouring through Jane's books back then, which were these massive.
Yep.
I mean, they weighed 10-pound books, and of researching, what's a Grisha class frigate? I don't know if it's a frigate or corvette, but a patrol ship maybe. And the opening scene of Hunt for Red October is panning over this kind of still shot of things, and there's a Jane's book, and I remember cheering in the theater, Jane's, total geek moment there. But anyway, so yeah, Command Modern Operations I played for a number of years, but Cold Waters I had not touched until episode 7 or 6, whatever it was. Six, because I needed a sub attack and scene, and I knew I was going to have more of those to come. And DCS, we have a mod, and I downloaded. I was like, no. And Arma had a mod, and no, you really don't. And nothing worked. I played with different mods in Arma and DCS, and nothing worked. And so I tried out and so I had to learn Cold Waters on the fly
just to get those shots. And I'm kind of, Cold Waters is a really cool game. Or simulation, I guess, simulation light. The issue is, though, the camera movements suck. It's really hard to get good camera movement in scene setting. They didn't do us cinematography people any favors.
They didn't.
I hope this next one they have coming out, is it Sea Power, something like that? I
heard about it. I've heard about it. Yeah.
Yes, I hope they cater to us a little bit, or at least give us zoom. Give us a zoom function.
That would be great. One of the best mods of all, I would say, is there's one for Arma 3 called Gcam.
Yes.
And that allows you to give a whole lot of freedom to camera movement and tracking. And I try to give everything a documentary, not an unprofessional look, but a rough look, like this is not studio grade shots, and this isn't great tracking shots with, it's supposed to look a little rough and documentary-ish. And Gcam does a really good job of doing that. So yeah, those games right now are, and I probably spend the majority in Arma when I'm doing, the close-up, obviously people shots.
Your stuff is that level, or you're looking for that, it's a ground war. You're
right. But then you're fighting Arma a lot. But I'm using DCS more and more for some of the ground stuff. Like in this last episode, I needed the transport planes at the airport with the troops unloading, and getting Arma the guys to do what I want them to do would have taken a lot longer. If it's a faraway shot, I cranked out that scene of planes in the background taking off, 2 or 3 sitting on the apron with a Humvee going by just so there's movement, and then seeing the guys running off of the plane.
Foreground.
In DCS, I was able to produce that in 20 minutes, and then it's tweak it from there. But in Arma, every scene, it's an hour or more per scene to do anything in Arma. But that's the nature of it, so I get used to it. But there's more and more I'm able to make DCS better for the ground stuff. So.
All right, so you answered the question about, where did flat circle history come from? I'm going to double back to that before I
Sure. So flat circle history ultimately came from
Was it a True Detectives things or was it Nietzsche thing?
I like that you caught that. My answer is a little bit of both. So it's a Nietzsche, it's a wink and a nod to Nietzsche, and time is a flat circle, his quote, and the belief we're in this endless loop, right?
Yeah.
Which also, what's his name, Cole and True Detectives, which I think is probably one of the best written series, season one on the planet. I mean that writing is brilliant
on the planet, like hands down. Yeah, no,
yeah.
Agreed.
My two favorite, I would say, is True Detectives in terms of writing for television. Season one of True Detectives and All is just the best writing. Deadwood you can find it on HBO Max. It's a western. It's almost written Elizabethan. It's crazy.
I burned through probably most of the first season of that, if not the first into the second.
Yeah,
those pigs were well fed. That's all I'm going to say.
The pigs were well fed. It's brutal. It's brutal. The cut downs. Maybe Veep is best for cut downs of putting people down. Well, but the writing on there is brilliant. So. Flat Circle came from that, but it came from also as I'm seeing what's taking place in Ukraine, and suddenly we're back to a potential of a major land war in Europe.
Right.
There's a great book. I forget the name of the author, called the Jungle Grows Back, and it talks about we've post World War II we've created we've sustained this relative peace in Europe, and fostered liberal democracy, and we've had 80 years of that. But if the basic theme of it is, if you don't tend the garden, the jungle grows back. Yeah. And we're seeing that happen. There's collective memory, collective knowledge that's being lost, and we're making the same mistakes again. And so to me, that was a recurring theme even when I was working on the sci-fi stuff. But that was the point, and what I'm calling flat circle history. It's the sub to that is cautionary tales of near future conflict, and this is meant to be a cautionary tale. Hey, people, let's maybe not. Here's what could happen. Let's not do that again. Right. And that's kind of but if we don't tend the garden, if we don't acknowledge this, and we're going to make the same mistakes again. So that's ultimately the theme of Flat Circle history.
And what you've made, why it stuck out to me, is because it was so plausible and terrifying. Like absolutely terrifying, because right, we're going back to this could flashpoint World War I. How did that, and all of a sudden, now we're okay, he's involved in this, they're moving troops, now we're
I picked the I've a lot of the if you look at the negative comments on the videos, I'd say the vast majority of those, even the ones that say that the production is great, but they have a hard time with that Russia is capable of doing what it's doing in my story. And my response to that is, well, this is 2024. This takes place in 2032, and a lot can happen between now and then, including regime change in Russia. Could I mean, how fast did it take Germany to ramp up post World War I? Not that long. So is it entirely realistic? That can be debated. But to your earlier comment, the question that I have to be able to answer is this plausible? Whenever I'm working on a script, is this plausible? Plausible. There we go. That to me, it's 2032. Sure. I mean, if you read the different like Rand reports, like I said, and others, yeah, even with their capabilities that they've lost in Ukraine, it's still possible. So we need to pay attention. So
Yeah. Kind of two birds, one stone, that one. So yeah, that's good.
sure.
Uh, so we'll go. Okay, we're shifting gears here.
Yep. Okay.
If you had to delete this question, if you had to delete your videos, start fresh. I mean, we're talking YouTube, everything's gone, and you had to start over again. Where would you go?
The only thing, yeah, you asked me that, and I had to think about that for a bit. I think the only thing I would do it exactly the same, except I would have beefed up episode 1 a bit more.
Okay.
That one is only about 3.5. It's really it's kind of was meant as a teaser, but yet there's a lot
to make a pilot. You have to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere, but there's a lot of meat in that. What I call there's a lot of detail and backstory and everything else. Should I have made that slightly longer and had a little bit more backstory? That's the one I'll debate. I'm my own worst critic about that kind of thing.
Right, you're probably like me, where you almost can't watch your own stuff because you see the problems or you see the flaws.
Yeah. That's the same with I'll do some woodworking or whatever, and get something done, and yeah, it's that one little flaw that my wife will. Nobody's going to see that. Well, I know, but I'll forever friggin' see that.
That's all I can see. I look at that,
right.
And that's the only thing I'm looking at is the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a hard time. I will look at the last episode occasionally that I've just produced for context to make sure, pacing in that for the next episode. Yep. But I rarely go back and look at
and rewatch the whole thing just to go like, oh yeah, that was right there. Yep. You're like,
no, because I'm gonna pick it apart.
Yep.
I'm gonna pick it apart, and especially episode 1. I go back and there's so many scenes and things that I could have, because I was just learning. And so, yeah, if I had to do it over, I'd probably do episode 1. But the rest, I'm good.
This is
I'm content.
Be how you're doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll go down the line here for
sure.
So what's the most challenging part of all this? You've maybe kind of like glossed over this a little bit, but like what's the worst part about this is maybe what I'm trying to get at. Like, what are you like, oh God, I got to do that again?
The thing that frustrates me the most is getting the games to do what I want. If you're going to be in the next room and suddenly hear me let loose a string of expletives, it's because Arma didn't do what I wanted it to do for the 5th time, and that will get maddening. That will get maddening. Everything else I enjoy, and even that it's not I hate it. But it'll drive me crazy. Yeah. It'll drive me crazy getting it to do, because then I got to start making decisions. It's like, will that scene even work? Do I have to tweak it, or do I have to find a different way to do it? And
put my foot through this computer. Okay, no,
exactly. So yeah, that's definitely, of the whole process, that's been the most challenging.
So what? Okay, well, this kind of like goes into this next one. So you've said you've played Arma. I mean, like played what Arma was too, is
right from the beginning. Yeah.
What skills have you developed from doing this you didn't expect to learn?
Definitely more in depth on the coding, scripting.
Yep.
In Arma than I expected. I keep getting better and better at that. Kind of ties to, I think, one of your other questions of what skills do I wish I had. I wish I had better scripting skills. I struggle with it.
Yep.
And so I find creative ways sometimes to get around it. But I'm getting better at it. But it's a slow process. But I didn't expect to have to there's knowledge on the scripting that I didn't expect to have. The other end of it is the what I would call the business end of things, which is the YouTube and Patreon and that end of it that I had to get educated on. And there was a lot of work to that.
Yeah.
That I hadn't got there in my head yet. First, it's just let's create some great videos that I would want to watch, and we go from there. And then you start to build on that. So.
Well, since you brought it up, okay, since I'll kind of jump down here to, so what are your thoughts on monetization, or where does this where is it going, or how does it help? Maybe I can round all that.
So I'm an old, I'm a former business guy.
Yeah.
I had, it was a small business. But I was instilled from my dad at an early age that if you're going to do something well, then you should be paid for it. And so this was never. It wasn't meant. It was meant to pay for itself and to show that it can do it. And there's also expense involved. And
well,
I don't know.
That was the follow-up question to this. Is what? How much you out of pocket just starting a YouTube channel kind of thing?
Not a whole lot initially, but there's the games, there's the subscriptions to different things, there's
Sure.
but the vast majority is time. Yeah. And that's my biggest thing. I have other things. I'm a pilot. I'm working toward my CFI. Okay. That's been a time sink. That slowed up production this late fall because I was getting my fundamentals of instruction cert and just other things, just a lot of time. Yeah. And so part of this also is I'm retired, right? So in terms of monetization, where I'm putting my time, whether that's doing CFI stuff to pay for me to fly around, which is not an inexpensive hobby, or this, or a combination of both, yay. I'm getting to do all the things I love to do. And love doing them, and people are enjoying it. So it's that aspect, but it certainly isn't the primary and wasn't the initial motivator. It's I have to do this story.
Okay. Okay.
It's that.
It's it's more of the drive. You have that in your head, like, no, you can do this. I can get this out, and
I want to tell the story. And sure. Back to the beginning of it's because it's something that I wanted to see, and I didn't feel it was out there. So let's try it.
Sure.
And go from there. So money wasn't the motivator, but it's a nice feather in the cap to keep things, and also because we're retired and we want to travel. We do some travel. I need to be able to make this portable at some point, which is going to include expense. So there's that aspect of it too.
I like how you put that, though, to cover its own expense.
Yes,
like I can appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's not at least self-sustaining. I had a business consultant tell me when I was first starting my business in the 90s, and he was looking at my books and looking at it, and he goes, "You don't have a business, you have a hobby." He said, "Unless you change your process and make some changes, what you have is a really nice hobby." And that always stuck with me. So I treat this as a business because it keeps me serious and focused, and not business in terms of the money, but the philosophy of it. Yeah. Because it like I said, it keeps me focused and serious and disciplined to do it. And so for me, that's most of my life has been running a small business, it's hard for me to get out of that mindset. So I'm treating it the same.
Understandable. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Back to these questions, and that pretty well answered that. Yeah. So out of curiosity, who else do you follow on YouTube, or what videos do you look at? And it doesn't have to be pertaining to our subject matter, but out of curiosity, what, like, you bring YouTube up and you're like, ooh, he's got a video up, or
I would say I have there's two separate worlds. There's the flat circle history world, and then there's the airplane world, the CFI airplane world. So there's a ton of airplane channels that I follow on a daily basis. That's all general aviation related. Yep. And then on the other end, even prior to flat circle history, there's a ton of YouTube channels, and I jotted down a few. The one that goes back the furthest is Dyslexy on Arma 3.
Yep.
I originally found him when I was playing Arma 3, and he did a thing on, or Arma 2 it might have been, with Track IR, and I was researching it, and then I was like, oh my god, he's helicopter pilot in Arma 3, there's nobody better than that dude. So I started following him, and have ever since. He's still on my list. I mean, he's been at it for 12 plus, I don't know, long time, well over a decade.
Yeah. Yep.
But others, Operations Room.
Great channel. Yep.
That one I was studying again early on, along with you, early on in this, to see how the audience was reacting and the growth and everything else. So and also just brilliantly simple, but I also, as you and I know, how complex that process has to be for them to take a major historical event and simplify it down to this animated simple, and you get it, you understand what's happening. That's a skill that blows my mind.
I don't know how he does it. That's the other part. Like, I don't want to know how he does it. Like, I can imagine what it would take to animate each of those, like the helicopters and the person and this and that.
It's got to be a lot of coding to do, because individually doing it, like, sprite based, would just, so there's got to be some coding background knowledge there to do that. But
yeah, great channel.
Great channel. Let's see, the history guy, I studied him quite a bit, and still follow him. I think he's a great storyteller. He'll take a certain subject and walk it through. And like I said, and yours, but there's also, trying to think of, there's probably 20 or 30 that I follow. There's some great little wargaming channels. There's I forget his name now, who does one that's all command. Now I'm going to forget the name of it. Shock Force, whatever that game is. He does some great, it's more like tactical level stuff. And I'll follow him. But there's some wargaming sites that I'll watch and really enjoy. And then outside of YouTube, I jotted down podcasts that I listen to. A lot of them are tied to this, but first and foremost, Dan Carlin, Hardcore History. Okay. If you haven't listened to it, he has a series out. I think you got to buy it now, but he has a series out about World War I. I own it now. I've listened to it. I think it's like 16 hours long or something. I can tell you how many times I listened to that. But he talks about World War I. It's called Blueprint for Armageddon.
Okay.
And it takes you all the way through World War I, and it is his storytelling and his ability to, once again, kind of like Atkinson, go from strategic down to, I mean, you feel at Passchendaele of the mud and the soldiers literally drowning in mud. You're just riveted. You're just, you can't leave it. And so Dan Carlin, Hardcore History. The Modern War Institute, the Rest is History podcast, Sea Control, Spycast, This Means War, War on the Rocks. I listen to all those because they all have, like Sea Control will do something very specific about, Indo-Pacific, or they've done ones on the Baltics. And, Modern War Institute will talk about, the complexities of amphibious operations in contested, waters, and all of those. I listen to them, I file them away, I jot down notes, and invariably bits and pieces of that will appear in an episode.
And you'll recall a lot of that. Oh yeah, that's why that would happen. Oh yeah, this is
a lot of that. So the podcasts are super helpful, and then like I said, the books. Atkinson and Clancy and all the way down to I'm a lover of Stephen King. I've read most of his stuff because what King is brilliant at, his later works I've struggled with a bit, but I'm sure if he's writing his latest stuff, but his earlier stuff, what King is brilliant at is tension. He is brilliant at building tension in his novels. And, The Shining is, the book is like the perfect novel. But the tension that he's building, you don't get to see the monsters at the beginning. It all comes later. You got to wait. Sure. And so all of that goes into my storytelling of trying to build tension. Because it's tension that will keep you, even in a 5-minute video, you got to have something to keep that attention, and tension is the way to do it. And so I try to incorporate elements of, King's got a great book called On Writing, which he tells his process. And it's, I think probably if for any writer out there who wants to get into it, that's a must. You have to read that. To learn, how he goes about it.
Curious. I have no creative skill on that depth level. I commend you for having written, and I can appreciate how much that goes into that. So
it's just doing it. It's just doing it.
So have you ran into this question then? Is there anything you've ran into in this creative process you have not been able to complete?
Yeah, I kicked that one around. Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I've certainly had elements that I've had to work around from high level down to perfect example, episode 8. I wanted a shot of a bulldozer clearing off the runway. I'd done research of the airports around, is it Riga or Tallinn? I forget. I think it's Riga. Okay. And I found, I'm Google mapping and doing the research, and I found one of the airports is kind of an abandoned old Soviet airport that is being used for drag racing and just kind of miscellaneous, neighborhood stuff. So I wanted to tell that. It was kind of a nod to the locals there of, I'm listening. I'm not just picking stuff. And but I wanted a bulldozer. Well, ARMA, I looked all over the place. I looked in DCS, looked at it. ARMA has a bulldozer, but it's not drivable. It just sits there. It's just a static thing.
Sure.
So I had to modify the scene. So what you see in the shot is the debris off of there with the bulldozer sitting there. And then I got the worker kind of walking past the screen. So you kind of bridge it all together. And I have the Blackhawks flying over to kind of distract you. But I had to work around it. Yeah. I didn't get the shot that I wanted. So usually it's stuff like that, and then I just find a way. But I know the day is coming, especially when I start getting over into the Pacific end of the war, which is, that's coming. And things, to me, the Baltics has been, quote, easy. Things are going to get a lot harder.
Assets we have that are
It's going to get a lot harder.
that are
Yeah,
that bad.
when I get over to Taiwan and all that end of things. And so I know at some point I'm going to run into some roadblocks I'm not prepared for yet. But it hasn't happened where it's stopped me cold yet.
Gotcha.
Knock on wood.
I've gotten held up a few times, but nothing. Same. Nothing
Yeah,
like
nothing stopped you completely.
no, maybe some of the ASAT stuff I was going to get into that I've like no.
Ooh, yeah. I've even kicked around. Do I need to get Kerbal to do some satellite? I've even kind of poked around at that a little bit of if I'm going to do any kind of satellite war stuff, do I use that as a platform? So I'm still
I
kicking
don't know
around
that
that.
Kerbal has the cinematography yet, or maybe it does, and I just haven't stumbled upon it. I haven't looked at it under that like under that light. So
Yeah, I poked at it about a month or so ago of seeing if it was possible, and I don't know yet.
brush up on
We'll
my
see what happens.
orbital dynamics, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the research. I probably the most fun is the research. Is the you have an idea, but now you got to go out and find.
Yeah.
Is your
Find
idea
assets.
plausible, and is there data and info to back it up?
Yeah.
And that's the fun part. I'll spend days,
I'm a bit of a problem solver, and yeah, same.
Yeah,
You how would how would that happen? Okay, is that
right.
plausible? Yes.
And
How do
somebody's
we
looked
get
at
in
it.
between? Yeah.
Somebody's tackled this. It's finding it and seeing if it jives.
Yep. Yep. Well, that leaves us to like a couple more questions here, and that was, I mean, it's
Sure.
AI generated or you actually you kind of glossed over that. You were saying, I mean, your clips are a little shorter, but have you thought about giving like an end of season movie just to summarize?
I have, and I don't have an answer yet. But my thought has been to take a season, and if I believe that's going to be 14 episodes for the first season. That could change here, but probably more than less. But do I put that together and change, drop the intros for each and blend them so it's seamless
Sure.
and makes sense, and put them together into one, almost hour-long video? Part of me really is intrigued by that. I don't know. I
It'll be a
don't.
bridge you're gonna have to cross when you get there, kind of thing, maybe.
I can tell you probably what'll end up happening is I'll do it. I'll put it together because I just can't not do it. And then
Sure.
I'll look
Sure.
at it. I'll have some people. I've got some play testers kind of,
Yep.
and see does it work. Like I said, there's the audience is we'd love them to be longer, but I go back to some, like I said, my background way back in the day was video producer, and I used to tell clients, if you're trying to do a sales video, 3 to 5 minutes, anything over 5 minutes, unless it's insanely compelling, they're gone. And really, if you get anything over 10 minutes, I don't care what it is, you've suddenly now created an educational video that's, you're in a whole different realm. And so that's always in my head. And by educational, I just mean it's not.
You're committed.
You're committed, and it changes the feel, and yeah, it's just hard to keep people's attention for that long. Now, I've got rockets and missiles, and I mean, you get stuff happening. So,
Sure.
would that keep their attention? I don't know. And would putting all of these together into one full length? I don't know yet, but I can tell you I'm going to do it, and then I'll see if it works, and then go from there. And then long term, I don't. Several have mentioned you need to make this a book, and that at first I was like, that would work. But the further I get, it's like, maybe, not in a Red Storm Rising way, I don't see it as a Red Storm Rising type with, I mean, I'd have to completely rewrite it because now I've got characters and arcs and, and all of that, which I have a little bit of that here, but nowhere near what it would need to be.
You're changing gears on.
I'm changing gears. But could this be a book of almost like a, when you get the big World War II historical books that's maps and, here's what happened. And so almost like I want to say a coffee table book, but that kind of feel with illustrations and everything else. It could be. Yeah, so I don't know. That's in the back of my head. But also I look at what I'm building here is it's first the story of World War III chronologically. How many stories are there about World War that tell individual stories of different things? So the beauty of this for me is once I get done with the series, now I can dive into, let's tell about the Rezeknia Raiders and scratch that itch a little bit and tell that story of a particular raid, or you know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah.
I can get into certain operations that kind of build off of. There's going to be stories that I've already have.
Right, you can pull out context because you've made,
Exactly, and that's the beauty of writing is when you're doing something like this that it starts to have a life of its own, and so I'm keeping open to whatever that ends up being.
Sure.
So
sure, and inspiration is strange like that, where you're okay, we're doing this, and wait, that would kind of work, and now it's wait, that would really work. No, hold on, I got a great idea.
Or it really doesn't work. I'm struggling on. Yeah, episode 10. I've been on this.
Yeah.
The intro for episode 10. I thought I had it. Then I went back and I tried to let it simmer for a while, and it's like, nope. Had to ditch it and redo it. So sometimes it doesn't work.
So okay. Next question. That pretty well covered that. AI generated anything. At this point, is it potentially terrifying in your opinion, or because yeah,
no, go ahead, no, finish what absolutely finish what you're saying.
I gave you mad kudos for that narration voice, and we kind of went down that road a little bit, but just for the sake of conversation, what
AI in general
is it?
Yeah.
Are we at the brink of you and I could make just about a Hollywood? Like Hollywood-sized, themed, videoed, like AI image generation. If you've played around with that yet,
I've played around with the still image stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Midjourney and Dolly. Yes, when I was working on the sci-fi stuff, I was leveraging some of that to kind of storyboard. I've not used any of it for this project, but. I mean, I've talked to others, and yeah, there's the day coming. I mean, it's the democratization of filmmaking, and to me, YouTube right now is still, to me, in its infancy in some ways. Where, well, I know it's been a long time, but it's how-to videos and goofy stuff and but in terms of creating I mean, I'm treating this almost like it's a mini Netflix show here that I've got going. That's my little corner of the world that I created, but it's a season, it's individual episodes, it's script writing and acting, and it's all the things. So I think that the number of people producing their own series is going to go right through and there's going to be a lot of garbage. And also right now, like, somebody having Chat GPT write scripts. I mean, it's middle school grade scripts that it creates. I mean, I will play with it with my dad. I'll tell him, give me a premise, and then I'll have it create a short story for him. But But it's, it's pretty basic stuff. But 5 years from now, what does that look like?
Right.
Right. It's I don't know, and I think there's still it's as good as you feed it in terms of the AI. It still needs the creativity. I still think, I hope, I'm saying this, whistling in the dark, that it still has to have the human element, to not be trope, cliche, to be original. Would AI create, the Cole character in True Detectives season 1? Would AI write what I think is one of the best written, Magnolia, the movie Magnolia, or Being John Malkovich, or I mean, some of these that are just your head explodes watching these movies of how creative they are. Could AI do that? Maybe someday, and hopefully that's a day after I'm off the planet. I like to think of it as leveraging it as a tool as needed, but it's interesting. I mean, I grew up in the era when the internet first came out and changed everything, and it was a giddy, exciting, take the foot off the brake and full steam ahead. The world is whatever happens. That was then. This feels different. This feels a bit existential. I already have people I know that their business, their jobs are suffering because of AI today. And what does that look like? So it was a long rambling answer to the question, but
no, it's.
I'm excited in some ways and terrified in other ways. It's like the internet, which is like the internet. I mean, it can be good for ill, but boy, back then, trying to equate it to the internet, having building an e-commerce site is different back then to creating something that wipes out humanity today. So it's a little different. The stakes are a little higher today than they were back in 1995. So yeah. That's my take. I don't know. I'm generally an optimist, but I certainly have moments of pessimism about things, about specifically AI.
Sure. Well, we've wrapped up the questions I had here, but for the last one, so maybe we could call that good.
Yeah. This has been great. It's been fun.
So, as a parting thing, what do you have some life advice you're willing to depart with? You're willing to share?
I will. Sure, I will share the same advice, and I'm staring at his letter that Tom Clancy gave to me, 30 some years ago, which is, as he says here, get to work and write the book, all caps. Get to work and write the book. And well, everybody has an idea. How many times have we heard somebody say, they're writing? We used to joke, called the Great American Novel.
Yeah.
How many finish? How many finish the novel? A lot of people start it.
Yep.
Not many finish it. How many start a video series? How many start what you did and finish it? It's the ones who finish. You got to finish it.
Yeah.
And to the people that say, I don't have the time, I don't have, so you find the time. I still marvel that back in 2011 I was running a business, family stuff, everything else, and I managed to write 130,000 word book in a little over a year and put it out there. Rawling, wrote Harry Potter when she was on welfare, taking care of her kids, and just getting by. If you want to do it, it's all prioritization. You will find it. You have to find a way. What are you going to carve out? I mean, I had to give up some things, and when I was writing, of other things that I want to do. I have things I want to do right now, but I'm putting those aside because I'm having a ball doing this, and I wanted to write this. My head's always, off on 100 things at once, but get to work and write the book and carve out the time. That's one of the things when I talk about Stephen King in his On Writing book. He talks about the discipline of writing, and then that could be the discipline of video production. It could be the discipline of whatever the creative thing that you are doing, but there's a discipline to it. And if you are disciplined, if you finish it, you are in a single percentile of people who have completed that creative process all the way through.
Sure.
I don't know what that number is, but I can tell you it's finite of who actually complete. Now, what happens to that project? Like I said, I wrote 4 books. I only self-published 1. The others are sitting here. But everything I learned from those books helped me with the next process, helped me with the next one, helped me in, so the writing that goes so much easier now happened because of a decade of writing sometimes shit that doesn't work.
Right.
And you learn
that learning curve. Yeah.
But you get through, you do it, you do the work. So that would be my advice. To channel him, to channel Clancy, get to work and write the X, the book, the video, the whatever. Just do it. Finish it.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.